What's up, everybody? It is Izzy. Welcome to episode 116 of the Q&A. If you like the Q&As, please remember to hit the like button on the YouTubes. And with that said, let's get up to the very first question of the day. Here we have a picture of a gorgeous doggo, and we are asked, is he making weapons of mass destruction? No. Clearly, he is trying to bring about world peace through cuteness. What is the best way to fix imbalances, such as one arm being stronger than the other? Honestly, it depends on how big the imbalance is. Everybody has some degree of imbalance. Like if the one arm is one rep stronger than the other, I probably wouldn't worry about that. However, like in my case where one arm is recovering from a surgery, what I do is I train my arm separately with unilateral training. Do your weak arm first and match the reps with your strong arm. Some bodybuilders don't lock out their knees or elbows on squats and presses. Is this worth trying? If you're considering doing this as a lengthened partial technique, it is potentially worth doing, especially if you're like an individual who's tricep limited on your pressing. However, if you're doing this from like a constant tension perspective, I don't think it makes any difference whatsoever compared to locking out and not taking a ton of breath at the top. So it doesn't matter as long as you standardize what you're doing. Constant tension really isn't a thing. Why do some people's muscles stand out more than others? Some people's muscles seem bigger than they actually are. Why is this the case? A lot of this just has to do with three things. One is the muscle belly shape itself. Two is the insertion point, and three is the actual length of the limb in question. So for example, somebody can have a long bicep that doesn't really have a peak, and it can be much bigger than it looks in a front double, although it'll probably look bigger from the side. Second, your actual upper arm can either be proportionally long or short. So for example, someone can have really short upper arms compared to their overall body. And even if they have very big biceps and triceps, it always just looks a little weird. It looks like their arm small compared to the muscle size because there literally isn't as much muscle volume because the point between the two attachment sites isn't as long as somebody with a longer arm. So those are the main reasons, man. But oftentimes, if someone looks like they have a big arm, they do. All right, I figured let's actually just show some visual examples of what different biceps looks. So this is one of my clients. He just tagged me in this incidentally. And this is a great example of a short bicep with a very high bicep peak. And this is usually considered ideal for bodybuilding. And for contrast, we have my fat ass. Now, my arm here is over 19 inches. You wouldn't really necessarily be able to tell that, or you might not guess that. Some people could tell because I don't have much of a bicep peak. It isn't zero, but it's much, much less than the previous example. And I have a longer bicep with an attachment much closer to the elbow. So it just doesn't look as big as it really is compared to somebody with a much higher bicep peak. Now let's look at some examples of IFBB pros. This is Martin Fitzwater. He has an over 20-inch arms, over 50 centimeters. And as you can see, he's got a very long muscle belly that attaches even closer to the elbow than mine do, and maybe proportionally less peak. And even though these are 20-inch arms or above, you might not necessarily think that they're as big as they really are because of the shape. And this is why shape can make such a big difference. Again, for contrast, here is the OG Arnold Schwarzenegger. And as you can see, he's got a very high bicep attachment and an incredible, insane bicep peak that he's known for. And even though here he clearly, objectively has a smaller arm measurement than the previous example, Martin Fitzwater, it might be more impressive looking to most people because of the shape, because of the peak, because of how much it kind of pops. And that's why some people's muscles can look so different despite similar measurements or despite being smaller from a measurement perspective. Last but not least, we have Reese McDonald, who is a current IFBB pro bodybuilder with very big arms himself. And as you might notice, it looks very different. And that's because Reese has a short humerus, meaning that the literal upper arm bone is pretty short. So even though you can see he's clearly got some big biceps with good peaks, big triceps that hang, it looks different than the other examples because the arm bone is literally shorter. So the space that his arm takes up isn't as much compared to like his head or the surrounding area of his body. And it just looks different. And that's again where the limb length itself, outside of attachment points, outside of muscle belly shape, can also influence the way that a muscle looks independent of the measurement size. So hopefully those examples give you something to chew on when we're talking about why certain muscles look different on different people. even with similar measurement sizes, or very different measurement sizes for that matter. Shortcuts or not, the dream physique will never be attained anyways. I mean, speak for yourself, man. I'm long past my dream physique when I started. I'm way past the strength goals that I set when I started. So again, speak for yourself. I think more often than not, when somebody says something like this, it's actually like a philosophical statement more than any sort of a statement of fact. I think you're setting it up in your own head as an unachievable goal, which maybe that works for you psychologically from a motivation perspective, but that's not what keeps me going anymore. It's not like, oh man, if I could just fix this little thing about my physique. I just keep going because it's fun and I like it. It's not because I need more. Why do you love Labradors so much? Well, I have 2 of them. You know, I'm not just posting like random pictures of labs, right? Those are my dogs. I guess the reason why I fell in love with Labrador so much is because of my first lab, Mello. He's just an amazing creature. He's literally inspiring to me. He has unflappable joy, and he is kind to literally everyone and everything. I just love him so much. What place do you think Andrew Jacked will get at the Olympia? I mean, I think he's pretty much a lock for top 5 at this point. I mean, he proved that even without being fully in shape from the back, which he literally never is. I mean, everyone constantly says, his hamstrings and glutes could have more detail. But he still beat the best version of Hunter that we have ever seen. And Hunter is himself a top 5 guy at the Olympia when he's on. I don't think he will be this year because my top 5 is going to be Derek, Hottie, Samson, Nick Walker, and Andrew Jacked in no particular order, but I don't see Andrew placing lower than 5th. Is OHP worth doing if you have weak side and rear delts but good front delts? First of all, how are you even judging that? But no, let's actually answer the question and be helpful. I start all of my clients, all of them, with at least one slot that is a high incline press or a vertical press. And the reason for that is because we have direct research showing that vertical pressing does in fact work the side delts well. Any pressing where the arms are below 90 degrees of abduction to start, and then they go above overhead, it starts with mostly the side delts doing the work, and then as you get past the midpoint, it's mostly the front delts. I've never seen anybody with dominant shoulders that has never done overhead pressing at any time of their career. The vast majority of people saying that you don't need to do overhead pressing are also the people that don't have dominant shoulders. They're merely not lagging at best. Why is my estimated 1 rep max higher on sets of 3 to 4 when doing a second set versus when I lower the weight and do a higher rep back off set? Does this mean anything? Does it matter? No, this doesn't mean anything, and it does not matter. All it really means is that you are an individual who is better at lower reps. But that doesn't mean that like 3s and 4s have a better hypertrophy benefit for you personally. And second of all, estimated 1 rep max formulas are not even necessarily accurate to begin with. So you're just comparing 2 made-up numbers to each other and deciding that one is better. Do you know what I mean? Again, estimated 1 rep max, it really just has no bearing whatsoever on hypertrophy training decision-making. What are your thoughts on direct neck training for aesthetics/bodybuilding? Those are not the same things, right? So let's be very, very clear about something. You are never, ever at any point going to be on a bodybuilding stage and judged for your neck size. Never going to happen. Not on the judging criteria. However, if you think a big neck looks super Chad or something, which, you know what, I respect that, then go ahead and train it directly. You have to understand that for me, as somebody with a nearly 20-inch neck who has diagnosed terrible sleep apnea and I have to live every day for the rest of my life with this machine that I suck to my face, you sound like a moron for wanting a bigger neck. However, then I'll see pictures of like Mike Tyson or like early Vegeta in Dragon Ball Z versus later Vegeta in Dragon Ball Z where they gave him a much bigger neck. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I get it. That looks way cooler with the bigger neck. So you do you, man. But just keep in mind your neck will probably grow from deadlifts, rows, without direct work for a long time. Alrighty, folks, that is the end of today's Q&A. Episode 116 is in the books. Remember, if you like the Q&As, please hit the like button when this comes out on YouTube. That said, I'm hoping that today's snooze fest of a session where I just did leg curls and leg extension for my primary lower body work leads to an actually good deadlift performance on Tuesday. The last 2 times I've tried to do a deadlift, I literally got 0 reps on my work set. So hopefully this actually turns out to be a productive workout. With that said, let's do the ads. If you would like to become a more substantial supporter of the Q&A, consider becoming a Patreon member for $1 a month. I'll put a link here on the screen and in the description box on YouTube. To work with me directly for coaching, look for my email in the description box or shoot me a DM on Instagram for fastest reply. And if you'd like to check out any of my ebooks, their link is in my bio on Instagram and the link is in the description box on YouTube. So with all that said, friends, I will catch you on Tuesday for another episode of the Q&A. Have a good one until then. Bye.